Cabin Sports Radio.
Here comes the siren. I want to go higher. Oh, my goodness. Coaching will defend. Oh! LeBron James with no regard for human life.
Pass is intercepted at the goal line by Malcolm Butler. Unreal. Oh, baby, for sure.
Cabin Sports Radio starts now.
Cabin Sports Radio on Cabin Radio, brought to you each and every Monday night by Sport North. Lecter and Unbreakable Mike Gibbons with you for another hour of sports chats. We do indeed call Cabin Sports Radio. Mike's feeling a little stiff today. Mike, what's going on?
Oh, it's probably the first time in 8 months. Got some physical exercise last night.
Oh, atta boy!
Yeah, we had an open run for the junior high-performance boys basketball team.
Okay.
Ran with them, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
4-minute intervals. Light jogging, I'd call it. It was rough. It was pretty rough.
Fall training.
You get the stitches, your lungs hurt,
Yep.
and then you get a couple jumps here and there, like my knees are shot. I'm an old man. And then the next day, oh my goodness.
The next day being today.
Yeah, it was pretty rough.
It's been a rough one.
It's been a rough one, yeah, for sure.
Oh,
but
man.
seriously, the first physical exercise, and everyone blames the pandemic, but I mean, I could have got up.
You could too, it's fine.
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
could have got up. And I'm not counting, subbing here and there for a slow pitch game over the course of the summer, because
Right, yeah.
you end up having some cold ones.
It's slow pitch.
And it's not physical activity. Yesterday was the closest thing to physical activity since March, mid-March, early March. It was pretty rough.
Feels awful, doesn't it?
You know what? You do feel a little bit better the next day.
Yeah,
Because,
sure.
the lactic acid is sort of setting in. It's a reminder that you did something that your body's not used to, and that feels kind of good. But, there's a little bit of pain that comes with it, too.
Right.
Pop some Tylenol.
Yeah.
All is good.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat today. I don't know why, but I got this sudden, ambitious burst of energy.
Wow.
Late last week, where I was just like, what would be really cool if we could just skate clear across Long Lake.
Yeah.
And I had this whole plan, like, there's been a little bit of snow, but now the ice is safe. It's about 6 inches.
Yep.
Probably right across Long Lake. Like, there's been a little bit of snow, but just like a little, light little carpet.
Yep.
Go out there with some shovels. Just clear out the snow right across the lake. We'll be skating across the whole thing in no time.
I saw your pictures. They were beautiful.
Yeah, we made it probably like 50 feet or something.
Oh, yeah. Okay. There's a really nice picture a couple weeks ago on Back Bay.
Oh, yeah.
Of a group full of skaters.
Yeah.
And it was crazy because there's still some pockets of open water in some areas. But I know that, has the city come out now with they always come out with their measurements. Certainly some of the smaller ones would have probably hit the 6-inch mark by now.
Yeah, the Snowmobile Club made their measurements as of I think early last week.
Nice.
And yeah, they were about like Long Lake was about 4 inches at that time. Back Bay was still like questionable. It's probably close to 6 inches now because all last week it was pretty cold, so it just like froze that whole time. But yeah, a few Yellowknifers jumping the gun and getting out there. Of course, it's all for the Instagram.
Of course,
you don't get a picture.
Do it for the gram.
Well, I mean, then it didn't really happen.
Didn't even happen. We should make a firm commitment on this show. We should try and get me in skates sometime. I've been on skates. I'm not kidding. I'm a terrible Canadian. Maybe 2 or 3 times in my entire lifetime.
Oh my God!
So maybe that's something I aim to do.
I got to teach you to skate
this holiday season. I'm sure I know how.
Okay.
I mean, I rollerbladed a bunch as a kid.
Yeah.
But,
okay.
No, it wouldn't be pretty. I mean, my center of gravity is probably really high. I was blaming on that. I have balance issues, but I'm just lazy is what it is. And I never really got into it. So,
well, we got to make sure we have the video camera handy then.
Absolutely.
Either way. Okay. We'll make that happen. Absolutely. I mean, we're not going anywhere for Christmas, right?
That's right. Exactly.
There we go.
You and Wheeler can have some fun at my expense on a morning show. Whatever. We'll figure it out.
I'm going to teach Ollie to skate, too.
Really? Yeah. That'd be good.
That's a goal this winter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got to.
He has to. It's a rite of passage.
It is.
He can't have his Canadian citizenship unless he learns how to skate.
That's right. It's part of the test.
You want to be a permanent resident for the rest of your life, Ollie? No.
Come
on.
You want to be a citizen.
That's right.
AJ had to do it. And now Ollie.
All right, so we have two semi-broken, young-ish men in the studio here. Let's get it going with Cabin Sports Radio and take a look at some of the bigger stories going on in the world of sports. The NBA, the NHL, the NFL, and the Masters starts this week too. But,
nice.
Yeah, but let's go with the NBA to start.
All right, so a little bit of excitement. The NBA and its Players Association have tentatively agreed and approved the league's plan to start the 2020-2021 season 3 days before Christmas on December 22nd. So this would require teams to report to training camps in less than a month. We're running out of time here. That's really soon. And only 7 weeks after the NBA season ended, which is kind of crazy.
Wow.
We'll see. This is obviously pending some votes still, but has support from the Players Association, the union, and the league itself. I think there was a lot of pressure from television companies. Yep. And I remember we spoke about it during a previous show as well. Really, I think a lot of the major sports leagues, the NBA and the NHL, are going to have a drop-dead end date of July 23rd, I think it is, because all going well, we are going to see an Olympics next year in Tokyo. Yeah. Summer Olympics 2021. A little unrelated, there was some promising news in the medical world today about a potential vaccination for COVID-19. There was some optimism. I know Justin Trudeau spoke about it today, and some of the political leaders in the United States as well. So maybe that's a little room for optimism there, but it seems like, I know from an Olympic Committee standpoint, that they want to push ahead and they want to have an Olympics in 2021, which is sort of forcing the hands of North American sports leagues to get seasons started pretty soon.
Right. Oh, I can't wait to see the poll data as to how many people are planning on taking the vaccine when it's available. That'll be depressing.
Well, we have trouble getting people to take vaccinations now, so for something so unproven, quote unquote, and new, oh boy, might be a tough sell.
Yeah.
But people want to put this behind us, and rightfully so. So I know there's been some talk about if we can get fans into arenas. That's the direction that everyone sort of wants to head in. I don't know if you saw, there's a clip this weekend from a college football game. I believe it's
Notre Dame and Clemson?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Where they stormed the field afterwards. And LeBron James, who was very vocal on Twitter over the weekend for obvious reasons, throwing his support behind the Democrats. Not a big fan of Donald Trump.
Right. Yep.
Maybe they'll go to the White House now. I don't know.
Yeah.
But they would have to be until, after January 20th, I guess.
That's right. Yeah. Everything is the year of postponements.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And then maybe the Toronto Raptors. Maybe they go to the White House, too.
There you go.
Did they go to Parliament? I don't know. I don't think they did.
You know what? I can't remember if they did or
no,
not.
I don't think they did.
Yeah, that's not.
I don't know how it works like that.
Yeah.
They've never won before. Did the Blue Jays go to? I don't know if that's. Yeah, I don't even know if that's a thing.
We're still figuring that out in Canada. Yeah, no, it's all about the president.
Yeah.
And so speaking of that, the NBA season, hopefully kicking off December 22nd. We'll see how that goes. The NHL, kind of. I mean, obviously in the same boat. Hoping as of this past Friday. Bill Daley was saying that January 1st is the plan as of right now for the season to start. I was reading about it a little bit today, and it's kind of reminiscent of how things came together with the NHL playoffs after the regular season was postponed. It just seemed like there wasn't a whole lot going on, and then all of a sudden everything came together all at once.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of conversation going on right now between the NHL, the NHLPA, and the Return to Play Committee. It kind of seems like everyone's just saying, January 1st, let's wait and see what happens between now and then. So there's been a lot of talk about an all-Canadian division as a possible change for the 2021 NHL season. So we'll see what happens there, but not a whole lot to report from that camp. So.
No, and you wonder if there'll certainly be a little more pressure on them now with the pretty closely set in stone December 22nd date for the National Basketball Association to return. You'd imagine that put a little bit more pressure on the NHL to get things going. The NBA typically makes a bigger deal of Christmas.
Right.
That's when it will have its 5 marquee games, 5 heated rivals play against each other. It's a full day of basketball. So I think that was a little bit of a motivation for them. The NHL usually has what once was a 1-game special affair with the New Year's Classic or whatever, the Winter Classic. They would always have.
Yeah, there was always, the World Juniors, obviously, always kicked off on New Year's Eve. And, or wait, am I getting my dates mixed up?
Well, it was around Boxing Day.
Boxing Day, right.
And then it goes to January 5th or something like that. That, as far as we know, is a go for this year in Edmonton. And I think splitting some games between Red Deer as well. But I know, and there was some talk with the NHL, I believe, as well, about getting more outdoor games. I know that sometimes that is a motivation for the league. But I think that the announcement out of the NBA will probably put a little bit more pressure on them.
Yeah.
They've always sort of circled January 1st as a tentative starting dates. And I'd be surprised if we didn't hear something relatively soon, especially if they do have the drop-dead end date of July 23rd. So with the NBA, it's a shortened proposed season, 72 games. You figure the NHL would probably follow suit and have an abbreviated season of its own. But I'd be surprised if we didn't hear something pretty soon, because training camps would have to start relatively soon here.
You mentioned games potentially moving outside. That actually just reminded me that I saw an article last week about it wasn't like an idea that I think anyone within the NHL has talked about, but just some kind of throwing it out there. There was talk about, why don't the Toronto Maple Leafs just move all their games? Why don't they just play at a BMO Field?
Yeah.
Make it an all outdoor thing. Like it's, we know it's very easy to accomplish with regards to, they've had outdoor games in LA.
Yeah.
So even if the weather is not particularly conducive to an outdoor ice rink, we know that they can do it. They have the technology, they have the infrastructure, and you got a big wide open field in the middle of the city that's just kind of sitting there, not doing a whole lot right now.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty interesting. I didn't really look that much more into it, but hey, and in the name of changing things up, because everything's different this year, why not?
Yeah.
And if it's going to be a shortened season, that's even potentially more reason to do so.
And they've already talked about the idea of an all Canadian division. So I think the plan is, certainly in Canada, where the coronavirus pandemic is more contained, definitely, than it is in the United States, although Ontario lately kind of trending in the wrong direction. I think they've been posting some single day records in the past week, which isn't good.
They're kind of all struggling.
Yeah.
Right now.
Quebec, Ontario, even BC lately, not going in the direction you'd want them to. But something like that in an outdoor, we know that being in the outdoors is better than being in a confined space where transmission is easier with closer contact. That's something that really could feasibly work.
Yeah.
Especially, and you've heard leagues talk about it, and I know it probably sounds a little optimistic at this stage. You've heard multiple leagues now say they want to have fans at some capacity or another in attendance when the next season rolls out. What better venue, really? You could space out quite a bit of people in a venue that holds a lot more people, so there wouldn't be that type of congestion as you would in a building that's a whole lot smaller.
Absolutely.
One other issue for the Raptors, though, and there have been talks about them potentially playing in Nashville, I think is the latest, because they, of course, would have to travel over the border and play their American rivals in the Atlantic Division. And
Kansas
other
City
divisions.
was one of the other
that was thrown around. Patrick Mahomes was trying to make that happen. Louisville was an option earlier as well. It seems like Nashville's emerging as a bit of a favorite if the Raptors are hosted, like the Blue Jays were in Buffalo, so that there's only moving around within the United States. And we know, of course, that the border is closed for non-essential travel between Canada and the United States. Maybe that changes with this vaccine announcement today, maybe not. So that's why we've heard the talk of an all-Canadian division if the NHL season gets underway pretty soon here. Only travel within Canada as opposed to the United States, and travel over the border when it's not being advised at this time. And like you said, maybe outdoor venues are something that's looked into a little bit further. But I think I think we'll find out pretty soon here.
So the only thing that's safe to say at this point is that there's a lot of things that are still up in the air.
Very much so. Very much so.
With that in mind, the NHL free agency period has all but ended. There's not really a whole lot of names out there. Not a lot of movement in recent weeks, but one pretty big name that is still floating around as a free agent. There's been a lot of rumors as to what teams are talking to him, but nothing concrete yet. Mike Hoffman, who played several years with the Ottawa Senators and then played the last 2 seasons with the Florida Panthers, is still a free agent.
Yeah.
Which is a little strange when you look down his career numbers. He has yet to play a full regular season where he has scored less than 20 goals. And if last year hadn't been shortened, he would have had back-to-back 30-goal seasons.
Yeah.
Now you think a guy like this, he's not young. He's 30 years old.
Yeah.
So he's kind of at that age where you're not exactly grabbing a guy like this if you're a team that's building towards the future.
Right.
But if you are a team like a Boston, which there have been rumors that he's been talking to, or potentially even a Tampa Bay that's, maybe loading up to try and squeeze everything out of, a window with their recent Stanley Cup victory, or even just like a team that needs some scoring, like the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah.
You would think that there would be a bit more movement on this guy. Like you look down his numbers in the last 5 seasons, 27 goals, 29 goals, 26 goals, 22, 36, 29. He has put up consistent numbers and yet is floating around there as a free agent. And I think there might still be a bit of a black mark, a bit of a red flag. You remember a couple seasons ago, his last one with the Ottawa Senators, which was also Erik Karlsson's last season with the Ottawa Senators. Remember there was a whole thing
some drama there
between them and like some kind of like death threats or something between like their wives. Like there was a whole thing going on, and I couldn't help but think that just somehow Eugene Melnyk is probably somehow to blame for this, because just nonsense seems to happen in the guy's presence and on his teams. But it was just this really bizarre situation. And I mean, if you Google it now, I'm sure you'll get more of the details than I'm going to fumble around with. But yeah, I remembered off the top of my head. I was like, yeah, there was something there. And that's the only thing I can think as to why a guy like this would still be sitting there looking for a job.
Yeah.
36 goals, 29 goals the last 2 seasons. Like, he's a player that he seems to almost be getting better. I mean, not if you look at his plus minus, but again, he was with the Florida Panthers, so you could take that with a grain of salt. But he could really add something to a lot of teams, but nobody seems to want to take a chance on him. And it kind of harkens back to what we were talking about last week with Mitchell Miller and the ill-fated pick of the Arizona Coyotes,
right?
Who 4th-round pick. Again, I cannot make sense of that situation and what the Arizona Coyotes organization was thinking. Like audible, just shock in the room when that selection was made. And it's a situation where, now not only does he have, a lot to work against when he doesn't even have an NHL career. You see a guy like this who has put together a pretty stellar NHL career, but you got that red flag.
Yeah, it is really, really strange. It feels like a lifetime ago, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When the Ottawa Senators were 3 years removed from their Eastern Conference final run.
Yeah.
Win all the way, lost to the Penguins, who went on to win against the Sharks, was it that year? And now no one, of course, on that team anymore. So Hoffman going elsewhere, Erik Karlsson going elsewhere. But yeah, you're right. Things got pretty ugly in the nation's capital. There were some serious allegations, and threats, and lawsuits thrown around. I can't remember what became of it, but it did get pretty ugly. In Senators land for a while there. But it is, again, really strange to me. This is an unprecedented off season. We'll see how long it is. We don't even have an answer to that. But free agency came and went pretty quickly. All the big dominoes fell rather quickly. The biggest one, Alex Pietrangelo, going to the Vegas Golden Knights. It is pretty strange. You mentioned the Boston Bruins. They seem to be linked to every single free agent out there, but somehow, amazingly, struck out on pretty much all of them. The Predators, you got to figure, are a team that's given him a look. The Hurricanes, I think I've heard in there. There's some other ones that would make sense. The Blue Jackets, they could use some scoring. The Devils, and
even the Dallas Stars in the Stanley Cup Finals, they looked like a team that could have used one more, bona fide elite scorer.
Yeah,
and might have put them over the hump against the Tampa Bay Lightning. But it's just it's really strange, and you wonder just if there is that lingering red flag kind of hanging over him. And I remember when he went to Florida. And part of me was just like, okay, this is either where he's going to play out the rest of his career, or he's just going to take a couple seasons. Things will blow over. Not only is he taking a couple seasons, and you would have thought maybe things had blown over since in that time, but he's put up really good numbers.
Yeah,
but still,
and you think even still teams would pay for that. I think scoring at a 36 goal pace. Last year, before the season was abbreviated, hit 30 the year before, as you alluded to. So this is a guy that can put up 60 points for you on any given season, half of which goals. And teams are some of the teams in the league, anyways, are really desperate for scoring. So surprising, and he probably wouldn't fetch a massive contract. He'd be at the mid level, I would think. He's not going to command that much on the open market compared to some of the bigger fish that fell earlier. But in terms of projections and this free agency class, I would have thought he would be among the bigger fish, anyways. Certainly not in the top echelon, but someone that can be a difference maker.
He's definitely a one-dimensional type guy, so that could be working against him too. Like not a whole lot of defensive presence in Mike Hoffman's game, but every team could use a guy who can put up 30 goals.
Flat cap, probably also an issue, but there are teams out there with pocketbooks. And I know there's interest. I think his agent's saying serious interest from as many as 6 clubs. As many as 15 have checked in on his availability, and he is unrestricted, so he's completely available. Very interested to see where he ends up, because he's a guy that can score some goals for you.
Finishing things off with the headlines, the NFL season has reached the midway mark. Some teams played their 9th game. Some teams have just played their 8th game. And it's a bit of a reflection of 2020 in general, I feel. You look at the NFC East, which, years ago was one of the most competitive divisions in the entire league. Like the Eagles, you expect to see on top, but they're on top with a 3-4 record.
Yeah.
It's scary to think that between them, the Washington football team, the Dallas Cowboys, and the New York Giants, the last 3 there, which are 2-6, 2-7, and 2-7, it's scary to think that one of these teams is going to get a playoff spot.
Yeah.
Based on
that's a really bad division.
Oh, it's just awful.
Historically bad, I would think.
Oh, I would think so, yeah. You move to the NFC West, the Seattle Seahawks on top with a 6-2 record. I think most people probably could have predicted that. Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals turning a lot of heads with, and he has his team at 5-3. LA Rams sitting at 5-3 as well. This is the shocker that last year's Super Bowl contenders, not the winners, the San Francisco 49ers, getting off to a really rough start, 4-5 in the bottom of the NFC East or NFC West right now. So I don't think anyone would have quite predicted that.
And what's proven to be a pretty competitive division. Russell Wilson for the Seahawks mounting a very impressive MVP caliber type season. We'll see if that stays true throughout the rest of the season. But not a great start for the 49ers.
Yeah, the NFC North, Green Bay Packers on top with a 6-2 record. Probably could have predicted that. And then you move to the NFC South, which after a bit of a rocky start, Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers find themselves at second place, just behind the New Orleans Saints with a 6-3 record. However, The battle for first place in that division, which was, highly anticipated.
Yeah.
Tom Brady versus Drew Brees, two of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history, squaring off in a matchup to figure out who is the current leader in the NFC South. 38-3?
Yeah.
The final score?
After another double-digit whopping in one of the first weeks as well. So the Saints win that season series 2-0, both in really convincing fashion, and they're gonna duke it out atop the NFC South for the rest of the year. You would think, with the Falcons and Panthers off to pretty bad starts in comparison. So not something you can build off of if you're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now. 38-3. That is historically bad for Tom Brady.
Yeah,
but also has to hurt, especially after the walloping earlier in the season as well. So
I mean, they're still in good shape. They're probably going to make the playoffs. I don't think there's much of a question there. But man, that's got to sting.
Yeah.
You move over to the AFC. I don't know if much was predicted out of the AFC South. The Tennessee Titans currently on top with a 6-2 record. Indianapolis Colts at 5-3. Houston Texans just garbage at 2-6, and the Jacksonville Jaguars even worse at 1-7. The AFC North, I think
Steel Town, baby.
This Pittsburgh and Baltimore always basically historically always the top two teams in that division. They're always battling it out for first place. I remember a quote from, I can't remember what year it would have been, but a quote from the Baltimore Ravens years and years and years ago, that it was something to the effect of, we don't build a team that, that we're looking to win a Super Bowl. We build a team that we are looking to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Okay, yeah.
Because that's what you got to do.
Long-time division rivals.
If you're the Baltimore Ravens, the Steelers are going to be good. They generally are every year. And once again, those two teams sitting at the top of the AFC North. Steelers 8-0, and the Baltimore Ravens at 6-2. The Cleveland Browns are not horrible.
Right.
They're sitting at 5-3, which I don't know if that was really predicted or not. I think even if you thought that the Cleveland Browns might have a talented enough roster to stay competitive, you probably just thought they would Cleveland it up somehow. Right?
Devastating injury. Odell Beckham Jr.
They did have that, yeah.
Yeah, so that could have been a real blemish for them. Baker Mayfield putting together a nice campaign. So, yeah, I didn't see them at 5-3 this early in the campaign anyways. I guess we're halfway through now. A city that's doesn't have the most sterling reputation in terms of sports excellence. The Cavaliers getting their first championship in 50 years back in 2016. Might be another 50 before we see another one. But at a respectable 5-3.
But maybe no bottles thrown at Santa this year.
That's right.
Who knows? The AFC West, the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs, no surprise, sitting on top of that division at 8-1. The LA Raiders, I guess now, at 5-3, bit of a surprise there. Denver Broncos 3-5, and Chargers at 2-6. And then we get to arguably the most bizarre thing about 2020, the AFC East.
Yeah,
the Buffalo Bills are 7-2.
Yeah.
I don't think the Bills have been good almost in my lifetime.
That's weird. I've got a lot of friends back home hailing from Ontario, Buffalo Bills fans, right?
Oh, wow.
Obviously not crossing the border to see games right now. But
miserable people, no doubt.
Right? But that was a thing to do for years. So tuning in from home more so, but never a team that was competitive.
No.
So they must be over the moon right now.
That's
7-2, pretty impressive.
Josh Allen, quarterback with the Buffalo Bills, I just read today, became the first Bills quarterback to throw for over 400 yards and 3 touchdowns in multiple games. So he's having a monster season, and definitely the biggest reason why the Buffalo Bills are sitting on top of the AFC East right now.
Definitely.
The Miami Dolphins, also not awful.
Yeah.
That's been
competitive.
A while coming.
Yep.
Sitting at 5-3. The New England Patriots, very strange. I mean, I think we knew they wouldn't be as good without Tom Brady, but I don't think we knew they would be 2-5 bad.
No.
It's been a rough go for Cam Newton trying to step in and fill those shoes. But, there is plenty of season left. It could be just as that they've got one of the greatest coaches of all time, Bill Belichick.
Yep.
If anyone is going to get it figured out, it is probably him. And we know that Cam Newton has the pedigree and the talent to figure it out as well. So we'll see what happens there. But here is where 2020 is not so strange. There is a bit of familiarity.
That's right.
Things are normal in some ways. The New York Jets are 0-8.
Are really, really bad.
We can always rely on the New York Jets.
The Cabin Sports Radio Podcast, brought to you by Sport North, moving sport forward.
Cabin Sports Radio brought to you by Sport North, moving sport forward. Check out sportnorth.com for everything going on with sport in the North, including, of course, just around the corner, the Kids Sport Gift of Sport annual campaign. You can find out more about that and how to donate to Kids Sport NWT at sportnorth.com. Michael, you have a shameless plug for us.
Yeah, double dipping here, wearing my my coaching hat for the junior boys Spartans high-performance basketball team. Mentioned earlier how stiff I was from a short run with them yesterday. So that was an open run yesterday. We do have official tryouts coming up tomorrow night. They'll be happening at École Sir John Franklin High School in the gymnasium, 7:30 to 9 o'clock. So open run yesterday, tryouts starting tomorrow night at Sir John. And I believe there may be a second round next weekend as well. At the same time, the Yellowknife Basketball Association, for its men's and women's league, also seeking some new players this year. So I guess the best course of action would be to check out ykba.com. We're trying to get a couple more teams in this year. Currently sitting at 6 for the men's league, tentative 7, which would be great, and 3, including the high performance girls on the women's side. So if we can bolster those numbers a little bit, get people active during the colder months, that would be fantastic. So for all of those details, I look to ykba.com.
Okay. And if you can't outlast Mike on a short run, if you gas out before Mike does, you're off the team.
That's right.
Hit the shower.
It shouldn't be too hard. It was tough yesterday, Lecter. I'm not proud of myself.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough, my friend. My back is screaming from shoveling. So once again, I am...
We're getting old.
I'm right there with you. A couple sad things to pass along. First of all, a couple weeks ago, we didn't get a chance to mention this, but Joey Moss, longtime equipment manager for the Edmonton Oilers, of course, good friends with Wayne Gretzky, who originally brought him on to that job, passed away at the age of 57. Very sad, but lots of really, really touching tributes coming out from across the hockey community for Joey. Everyone knew him. Everyone loved him. And, if you want to look up more about that, just Google Joey Moss. And, you'll see a story about a pretty incredible person who made a pretty incredible mark on a lot of youth hockey players, NHL players alike. Very loved member of the community. Gone way too soon. Also, if you go to cabinradio.ca, one of the top stories is Edward Lenny, who passed away recently. He was an elder in the Beaufort Delta who was known as the father of the Northern Games, did a ton of work to rejuvenate Northern Games in the North. So if you want to learn more about Edward Lenny and perhaps pay your respects, you can read that story at cabinradio.ca and perhaps send a nice message to the family there. As well, the hockey community at large was mourning the passing of Howie Meeker, NHL legend, legendary broadcaster, coach. He was all around the game of hockey for so many years, passes away at the age of 97. A couple interesting things about Howie Meeker. He was actually the last surviving member of the Toronto Maple Leafs 1947, which was his rookie year, 49 and 51 Stanley Cup winning teams, as well as the last surviving member of the inaugural NHL All-Star Game, which is not the same game as you may have read stories about the Eddie Shore, Ace Bailey incident. No, that was about 13 or so years prior. It wasn't actually officially the first NHL All-Star Game. It was just a benefit game for Ace Bailey and his recovery in hospital. And then eventually, 13 years later, they finally did start doing NHL All-Star games, although this one was still a collection of All-Star players from the rest of the league against the Toronto Maple Leafs, which is a bit strange when you think about it in this day and age. If they were to do that today, that wouldn't be much of a game.
No,
I gotta say that would be a slaughter, as we call it. But interesting reading about that inaugural NHL All-Star game. Apparently, it was a very physical affair. Also, very different from today's NHL All-Star games.
Very much so.
There was a major cross-checking penalty assessed at one point to Kenny Reardon, followed by a stick-swinging incident between Reardon, Bill Ezenicki, and Gus Mortson. You always had to look out for Gus. Also, Maurice the Rocket Richard was, for some reason, in that game, placed on the same line as fellow Hall of Famer and literal mortal enemy, Ted Lindsay. Supposedly, they did not exchange a single word for the entirety of the game.
One of the lone. It's nice to reflect. Obviously, under unfortunate circumstances, when we have a great of the game like Howie Meeker pass on, and we've seen a number of them over the years, pioneers of the game pass on. But I really do enjoy diving into some of these stories from back in the day. You
remember when we were doing the Seattle Kraken, the original Seattle team? And that was amazing. Yeah. I loved looking
They always
into
have
that.
The most hilarious stories. And one of the coolest things for me is in today's day and age, you're a professional athlete, and that's you don't have time for the game is so different now. It's so much faster now. Because of broadcasting, like that is your entire life. You're marketed. You are a hockey player. That's all you have time to do. Yeah. You use the off season, which should be your downtime, to get better, to have a better campaign the next year out. These guys played hockey during the nights, but then they went off to their trades job during the day or something like that.
Worked
had
on
multiple
the farm.
Job, right?
Yeah.
Right. Blue collar guys. But there would always just be the funniest stories, and you'll hear so many of the older generation and old school guys say how much the game has changed and how people are so friendly now.
Yeah.
And so we don't get these stories of these hated rivals.
Yeah.
Lining up on or joining up on a line together during an All-Star game, not saying a word because they hate each other's guts so much. During an All-Star game or a celebrity event, they're getting into the stick swinging events. Yeah. You don't get that anymore. There's not that level of hatred there. The game has changed.
Yeah.
But also, when we learn more about these guys after they pass, they give so much back to the game afterwards.
Yeah.
So Meeker, of course, his legendary Hockey Night in Canada career that came afterwards. Some of his most renowned phrases: Jiminy Cricket.
Oh yeah.
Golly gee willikers. Stop it right there. So yeah, it's really sad, but nice that we get a chance to reflect and deep roots in the hockey world, and it gives us a chance to take a peek back into the way things were.
And let's be clear, we're not two of these guys who are like back in 1947 when only real men played hockey.
Right.
Like no, that's not what we're saying.
Not.
Definitely not making a comment on whether or not the game is worse or whatever your thoughts are nowadays. It was different.
Yes,
and it's always just fun to go back and read those stories.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Speaking of Howie Meeker calls, I got a little snippet of audio for you here. One of his between periods calls with Dave Hodge back on Hockey Night in Canada.
Here's the rush of the game. Bob Gainey, watch this guy boogie. Oh, watch the move here in Turnbull. The greatest anticipator in the game is Lemaire. Watch Lemaire. He knows where there's going to be open ice, where there's nobody between the passer and the pass receiver. Perfect pass. Now watch the top of your screen. Look at this guy boogie again. Oh, Robinson comes in right in front of the net. Harrison hasn't got a snowball's chance. Great offensive team.
Hasn't got a snowball's chance. You know what word is underused in the world of pro sports these days? Boogie.
Boogie.
We never say that. Look at that player boogie up the ice anymore. I guess the skating style has just changed too much. Players don't boogie.
They don't
like
boogie
they used
anymore.
To. No.
Dave Hodge had a really nice tweet the other day. Yesterday felt good. Today feels awful. Howie Meeker's death leaves me with so much to say and so little ability to find the right words. In this limited space, I'll try by remembering him as the best of friends during the best times of my life.
Oh, that's
sad.
Nice. Yeah. Oh, and he knew they worked together for quite a while. Yeah, so...
skated into his 80s, apparently.
Yeah.
Did Meeker.
Man, the guy was in great shape, for a long time. But, 97 years old, that is a long, full life. And but, yes, nevertheless, much-loved personality and former NHL player gone in Howie Meeker. Finishing things off today on Cabin Sports Radio, as opposed to a bit of a touching story there, this one ekes into the bizarre category.
Totally.
You may have heard months and months ago now that Mike Tyson, yes, the Mike Tyson, was planning on getting back into the ring and having another professional bout. Well, that is coming up very soon. November 28th, Mike Tyson's long-awaited fight with fellow Hall of Fame boxer Roy Jones Jr. Mm-hmm. It is highly anticipated. It is weird to say that it's highly anticipated because you have two guys who have not boxed professionally in, I don't even know when Tyson's last bout would have been, but he's 54 years old now. I think Roy Jones Jr. is, 57? A few years older?
Sounds about right.
It's strange to think that two men in their mid to late 50s are a highly anticipated bout. But nevertheless, there it is. That's not even the bizarre part about what we're going to talk about. The bizarre part is that former NHL enforcer George Laraque wants to fight Mike Tyson next. Yeah. Not only that, apparently the fight is about 75% done, according to Laraque himself, and he just needs to find a promoter to put a full card together. He was talking with a Montreal radio show last week, and this story came out. He announced during an on-air chat. I don't even know if it was just out of the blue. It is hard to really get a handle on what George Laraque is thinking in this day and age, and I don't want to get into making fun of the potential of long-term brain injuries and how they may be having an effect. But it is very bizarre that if that is the case, which I hope it's not, he's said a lot of strange things in the last few years. Yeah. And this one not only is out of the blue, but it's just, first of all, why would Mike Tyson take a fight against George Laraque?
Yeah.
That's not a draw for anyone outside of Montreal and maybe Edmonton. Most people don't really know. And Mike,
I'm just trying to think to myself, would I pay to watch that? You'd have to think it'd be some type of charity event, right?
I would hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that our hard-earned dollars are going to some good use. There is a small part of me that would be pretty interested in seeing that, though.
Yeah.
131 career fights while in the NHL for George Laraque. We know him to be one of the absolute heavyweights in the National Hockey League before he retired back in, seems like a lifetime ago now, 2010, I think it was. And I guess he would like to follow in the footsteps of another fellow Oilers tough guy, Dave Semenko, who fought Muhammad Ali in an exhibition game back in 1983.
Really?
Apparently.
I did not know that.
This, according to CTV News.
Okay.
Yeah. So maybe it's not as... right? Okay, it's a weird world we live in. But wanting to follow in the footsteps of another fellow Oilers alumni. It's not that crazy out of left field for me.
I suppose not anymore.
We're talking about George Laraque here.
Yeah.
A very vocal guy, but a guy that will drop the mitts with just about anyone. He was pretty scary.
Oh, God.
He was pretty scary when he dropped the mitts.
Unquestionably, one of the most feared players of all time in the NHL. Do you remember years ago there was that really short-lived... it was called like Gladiators of the Ice or something like that.
Okay, yeah.
And it was just hockey fights.
Yeah.
That was all it was. You had just former tough guys, maybe former NHL or AHL junior tough guys, and it was just hockey fights. It's just, it's so, and like that's kind of where my mind went originally. It's like, why isn't George Laraque setting up exhibition bouts with like Joey Koser or something like that?
Yeah.
I mean, not that I want to encourage that because that's really stupid, but this just seems so out of left field. But now, well, Mike, you've given us context.
Yeah.
So, okay, maybe it's not that crazy.
And we know that the 54-year-old, he's coming out of retirement, and he's going to get his match against Roy Jones. So maybe that entices him further. 2020's been a weird year, man. And if the coronavirus subsides maybe a little bit more, maybe he's interested in taking on future exhibition events. And if it's going to charity, which it sounds like it would, and we're 3/4 of the way to getting this fight done, according to LaRocque's camp anyways. They would just need to round out the card. Maybe there's actually a little bit of smoke here, and when there's smoke, there's fire. Maybe this is something that actually happens.
You know, he's a lot closer in age to George St. Pierre.
Yeah.
I know they're good friends, apparently.
They are.
I would, you know what? I was going to say I would rather pay money to watch that, but George St. Pierre would just make short work of George LaRocque, and that would be that.
They wrestled. I think there was a clip of them wrestling.
I think there was, a few years ago.
Yeah.
I think it was while he was training for his comeback fight against Bisping.
That's right.
But speaking of Mike Tyson, this Roy Jones Jr. fight, have you seen any of the training videos of Mike Tyson?
No.
He looks scary.
He's a bad man.
Oh my God. Like a 54-year-old should not be able to move that fast. It is, it's frightening.
And the heavyweight division too. He's a big boy,
man.
and he can move quick.
I'm scared for Roy Jones Jr.
Yeah.
I know
George
he's not scared. And George LaRocque. No fear in either of those two, though. So, maybe I'll keep my worries to myself. All right, we're going to wrap things up here on Cabin Sports Radio. We mentioned a few notable names that we lost: Howie Meeker, Edward Lenny, and Joey Moss, of course, a couple weeks ago. One that goes far beyond the world of sports. We learned yesterday that Alex Trebek, the legendary longtime host of Jeopardy, had passed away. And so we wanted to put together a little extra with Alex Trebek. Of course, we know, many of us grew up watching Jeopardy. Mm-hmm. It's just been there. It's always been there in our entire lives, with Alex Trebek just being the most professional television host you could possibly ask for. Mm-hmm. An absolute gentleman through and through. And so, we wanted to say a little Cabin Sports Radio goodbye and salute to Alex Trebek. We will talk to you next week.
A final Jeopardy category that everyone can relate to. Highest paid athletes. Players, here is your clue. On Forbes' 2020 list of the 100 highest paid athletes, at age 50, this active individual sportsman is the oldest. Alyssa, we come to you first. You had 4,800 and you wrote down as your response, who is Yager? No, that is incorrect. It'll cost you 4,700. That drops you down to 100. Let's go to the middle now, to Julissa. She had 13,200 and she was going for Phil something. And you didn't complete your response. And it costs you everything but $1. Darn. Now we come to Samir. His response was, who is Mr. Magoo? Mr. Magoo? No. Julissa, you were going to write Phil Mickelson, I believe. Mm-hmm. And if you had completed that, you would be the new champion. Let's take a look at our champion, Samir. What did he lose? He lost nothing. He picks up 15,200, which gives him a two-day total of 37,400. What an ending to a very exciting week. And a great, great game. Thanks to all three of you. And thank you for tuning us in. We really enjoy it when you do.